Etheria Restart has the potential to be one of the best PvE/PvP endgame gacha games that have released in the last 5 years or so. But there's a couple of things that I think are also holding it back. And after spending over 100 to 150 hours playing Etheria Restart over the past month plus, I want to touch on both aspects of this game. What is going on, guys? Welcome back. It's Josh, and we're touching on Etheria Restart today. We're going to be as, well, no BS as possible as we are usually on this channel, because there are a ton of things that I actually like about this game. There's some things in this game that this game specifically does that are some of the best quality of life that I've seen in any gacha game. There's also a couple of things that are, well, beyond questionable when it comes to a kind of game like Etheria Restart is as well. Let's start with the compliments and the positives of Etheria Restart first. The first thing everyone's going to want to talk about, right, are how are the rates in this game? How is the currency? What are the rewards like as far as pulling goes? Because you might have heard a lot of negative aspects, especially on this channel, about the overall economy of Etheria Restart, but that has nothing to do with the pulling power and how the banners work in this game. And I want to say that this is one of the best pull banners that I've seen in any sort of PvE/PvP gacha game. Typically, you'll have a mix of like time limited banners, as you see here, that don't carry over. If you want to try to get the unit with the currency you have, and you're kind of punished if you don't get that unit, and then these units just don't get added to the pool. How does it work in Etheria? So Etheria so far is one of the best aspects of all of the different gacha games that you may have played, whether it's like a MiHoYo game like Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail, or even something like Epic 7. It's sort of a mix of all of the positive aspects of all of these different banner types. So as you see here, these are the 2 limited characters at the time of recording. This has been true for all of the limited banners, and they've all worked this way so far. So the way that this game works is that there is a hard pity at 80 summons. Now, as you can see here, the big plus as well is, well, the summons that you do in this game, they carry over between types. And specifically on top of that, if there's multiple limited banners up and you change your mind halfway through, they actually do in fact share that countdown to the pity. So if we wanted to pull for Nahor right here, we don't get him. Guess what? If you check this now, 79 to the next pity, and then 79 to the next pity here as well. But not only does it carry over between the 2 types, if there's 2 up at the same time, it will also carry over to the next limited banner as well. And the pity for this game is 80. That's the hard pity. Typically, if you're coming from something like Epic 7 or Genshin Impact, the hard pity there is 100 summons. So this game's 20 less, but on top of that though, if you scroll down a little bit here, the overall drop rate, including the guarantees, around 14%. It's not specifically stated here, but there's also, just like in Genshin Impact, a sort of soft pity around after the 50 pulls on a banner, which is something that we don't have access to in something like Epic 7, where like there's just a hard pity, but you don't get increased luck after you're done going over halfway to pity in that game. This game has both of those aspects, and it carries over, between banners. If you decide to change your mind halfway through, you decided maybe you wanted, in this instance, Nahor, and then you didn't get him, you did a couple of pulls, some reviews came out for the other character. Well, guess what? You can swap over, in this case, to Fukyu and start pulling there, and you won't waste any of your soft pity, you won't waste any of your hard pity, which is very player friendly. The other thing that this game does do is, so far, every single limited character that has had a limited banner also gets added to the permanent banner afterwards as well, which is absolutely insane. Now, is this going to hold true for forever? I'm not sure. Are we going to have like truly limited units, like a summer version of a character? Who's to say? But so far, the game has called these limited characters, and then they do in fact get added to the permanent pool afterwards. Like Freya was the first limited character to have her own banner in Etheria Restart, and she's still on the on the permanent banner now after she was a limited banner. You can even see while the banners are going live and they're still limited, you can get the limited characters on the permanent banner, which is a 10 out of 10 thing. Now there also is moonlight pulls, or in this game, extra affinity light dark summons as they're called in this game. And the one thing to know about this as well is there's going to be a permanent light dark banner, or if you're from Epic 7, a moonlight banner. There's also going to be, every single time so far, a new light dark unit has come out. They have had their own limited banner, and it works the same exact way. After that banner is revealed, you can also still pull them on the permanent light dark banner on top of that. One thing that you may have heard, a lot of this does come from, if I'm guessing, a lot of the negative, oh, it cost extra to pull on this banner, comes from players who haven't played like Epic 7, for instance, before, because this does take its own currency, takes the Apex prototypes. And if you want to get an Apex prototype with raw currency, it's 300 for one pull instead of the typical 100 for one pull for all the other colors, like the RGB characters. Now it is triple the cost, but coming from something like Epic 7, where you don't have the opportunity to directly convert your summon currency directly into a light dark pull in those games, like in Epic 7, for instance, you can't just directly turn Sky Stones into Mystic Metals. You could try to with the refresh of the shop and stuff. If you put time in there, you can get some Sky Stone to Mystic Metal conversion, for instance, in that game, but you have to put in the time, you have to click a bunch of buttons, you have to get lucky, right? And you have to spend gold in the exchange shop to do that. Whereas in this game, you can just directly convert the Hydra crystals that you earn right into moonlight pulls if you want to, or I keep saying moonlight because I played a lot of Epic 7 in my day, the light dark pulls on this banner as well. And just like before, the pities are the same. It's an 80 guarantee pity on either the new light dark permanent banners or the new limited banners when they come out, still 80 pity, and it still has the soft pity from 50 on up as well, which includes an overall drop rate of 14%, including that guaranteed at the end, starting at about 50 summons. So the pulling system in this game is very rewarding. It's very ease of access for a lot of players out there. Now, I personally haven't bought any pulls outside of, I think there was like 2 $1 packs or something for 10 normal pulls. And I've had very decent luck when it comes to this game so far, as I'm pretty much free to play. And if we go and check out my archive here, as far as Animus Archives, I own most of the characters in this game. As far as light dark summons, the only one I'm missing, sadly, is Shadow Sonya. You might know what to think about that down below. But for the other characters, there's a handful, right? I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 5-stars, 7 total, counting the light dark version of Sonya. And also the funniest thing is I haven't pulled a Fangus on this account at all. A single 4-star, not sure. But very easy to get into. I think I remember hitting like the 420, there's a 420 pull achievement in this game. And at that point, I pretty much had most of the characters in the game, including some of the light dark summons. I was missing like maybe 2 of them. And with the reroll potential of this game, very easy to do in 10 minutes as well. The game just sort of gives you so many ways to pull, especially through the events and all of the different content that you can do in this game, which is what we want to bridge ourselves into talking about next, is the content in this game. There's actually quite a lot of it, whether it's going to be easy side quest reward things. They like to have different kinds of events simultaneously running, where they basically have an event like this one, the Shell Story, where you just kind of log in and you click some buttons, you get some free rewards, you get some nice stuff to progress your account as far as your character leveling, their character abilities, unlocking potential for you to use their skills. Slowly, some of that stuff will come from there. And then they'll have like another event that is more combat oriented. And we'll talk about that because a lot of these events have been getting a lot of flack from players for just, the game wasn't out that long, and it, like one of them, for instance, wanted you to have like 15 characters semi-built or mostly built so you could get all of the rewards. A lot of these events seem to be sort of, well, aimed towards a player base that just can't really get there quite yet. But we'll touch on that in a second possibly. But there's some permanent content that resets as well. We have like the Ember Trek and the Ethernet Rally. We have the Daily Phantom Theater. We have something like the Anti-Sync Echoes, which is like a one-time thing where you can go in and do a bunch of different bosses. You'll gain some rewards. You'll gain some pulls. You'll gain some nice little cosmetic stuff every once in a while, like your ability to change your avatar to some of the characters or some of the bosses in the game as well. And this Anti-Sync Echoes, they've actually been updating quite a lot. And like there's stuff that I don't even have any shot of dealing with quite yet. It's like the long-term end game sort of one-time battle end game content for us here. And then Ember Trek and Ethernet Rally. Some of it's mid-tier to end-tier, depending on what characters you have access to on your account and what you've been able to progress towards. A lot of it was a little over-tuned at the start, especially like we were talking about with some of the time-limited game mode events, where a lot of players just like really couldn't quite do it yet. And some of the bosses were just like way over-tuned, especially in something like Ethernet Rally. The Kurururu, this guy right here, that's Dahlia. There was a Kurururu guy that was giving a lot of players a lot of problems out there. But as far as when it comes to like the grinding content in this game, as far as the content is designed, it's mainly pretty good. All right. Now, when we come into doing something like shells, which is basically the weapons of this game, shell farming is where you get the vast majority of the power for your characters. And there's quite a few different pieces of gear, these different shells you can gain access to, whether you want to make a speedy DPS, a tank down support character, a tank down counter character. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. And these characters and these shell formatting and farmings, it's not just like power creep, the stats are higher all of the time. There is a little bit of, you know, team management. You don't want to go in there and just use, and the game actually doesn't let you use the same exact characters all of the time in every different piece of content that you're going to be farming out there. And it's mainly because of the way that the content's designed. And there's also a negative that we'll get into later, where some of it's just like, you're not allowed, you can see it on the screen here, you're not allowed basically to use hollow characters for the most part in this fighter. You're not allowed to use a light character or a dark character because they're just going to take too much damage at this point in the game anyway, and you're just going to go down. For instance, like Nico Nana is one of the first things that people like to go in and fight. And I was able to brew up some pretty cool stuff using some SR characters that people just really didn't really think about when the game launched, meaning like Rin the Unbowed here. And Dina, this was like my mainstay team. I think I actually need to put some gear on Dina real quick here. And this will also lead into another super cool thing that this game does do. So as we move into like, wow, look at my team do cool stuff. Modules here, listen, gear setups and gear loadouts, awesome. They also already said that they're working on an even better version of this where you can have like team gear loadouts for everyone. Super sick. So for instance, I have like a red DPS support character in the form of Dina right here, and I can just swap her gear back and forth between two of my characters. For PvE, I don't need to have the ability to gear out two identical sort of archetypes of characters on my account. I can level them up a little bit and I'll use them on different teams so I can just swap their gear around together, which is super cool. That's an amazing thing here. And then you can just sort of come in here and let a team like this cook. I know a lot of people will look at this and be like, man, this shell is useless, right? And this was one of my little cooks at the start, was this shell right here. The Dark Moon, listen, getting one turn of extra debuffs in the grand scheme of most things doesn't really matter. But for some fights, like when I was first grinding this fight out, the one turn really did matter for the team that I had. Nico Nana is sort of someone who gains a lot of damage reduction. And then as your speed is increased compared to Nico Nana's speed, that damage reduction goes away. And they've nerfed this boss a little bit, so my clears are even faster now for the most part. But you can come in here and use someone like Rin the Unbowed, who's a speed scaling DPS character, who's going to use the Swift Rush set, which is typically put on a lot of at the start of the game anyway, everyone thought, for supports only, you can use that on her, increase her damage, get a Swift Rush set that has some DPS stats rolled on it, and you're doing pretty good things there. So I was able to use 2 SRs that people were just kind of sleeping on. I think they were rated like tier 3 or tier 4 at the start of the game, and everyone was like, I'm stuck on Nico Nana, I can't beat it. And I was just like, bro, Rin the Unbowed, insane character for PvE, also really good for PvP. And Dina's one of the best ways to buff damage on your account, and she's an SR character because she not only defense breaks, she adds vulnerable, which is 30% more damage taken, and then she's got her own unique debuff here that allows you to basically gain an attack multiplier, this erosion debuff, every time someone crits other than Dina on your team. So a lot of the times, like in this party, the only person who's critting is my DPS, as an additional attack multiplier when they crit, adding even more damage, which is pretty crazy. So that's kind of the cool stuff that you can do in this game, and it's pretty great out there. The other thing when it comes to characters, since we're talking about the characters and we're kind of glazing the game a little bit right now, the characters' kits are all fairly unique. Whether they're SSRs or SR characters, there's not really a lot of like, oh, these characters all do the same exact thing. You know, most characters in this game, regardless of rarity, you could find some sort of use for them, to the point where it's almost a detriment at the launch of the game because you want to build so many characters and you just kind of really can't, because a lot of the ways that you're building your characters up, especially when it comes to SSRs, is you can level them up fairly easy. You can limit break them. You can get them to like level 50, or maybe get them to, you know, like some of my characters are down here. Like Dina, I still use at level 45, 5-star out of 6-star awakened, and you can get a lot of benefit out of them. The other thing that is very nice is that there's some very nice low-level R characters that people are still finding uses for. Vice was a character that I leveled up initially to get through some of the generic PvE content like Ember Trek, etc. I remember hanging out in Discord and being like, talking to some folks, and people were like, who do you guys think's like OP though? And I just remember taking a picture of Vice's face and throwing it in there. Everyone thought I was trolling, and I was like, no, man, like this guy, he's got attack down AoE, he's got AoE pushback, he heals himself when he puts debuffs on, he purifies himself, and if he's at full HP when he goes to heal himself, he heals other people in your team, and he can like permanently lock people down with taunt, because he's got S1 that taunts as well, and you can build him a little bit of Bramble, right? So he counterattacks. You could potentially lock down some of the harder PvE bosses, because most bosses actually aren't immune to taunt. They'll be immune to stun and sleep and all this other stuff, but not taunt. You can taunt them so they don't get to do their craziest move ever. And he's also not just preventing damage because he's blocking the enemy from using some of their craziest moves, but he's healing himself and potentially sustaining other party members in your team as well. And that's just an amazing thing that we've seen in this game so far. This character here, RC77, not leveled on this account, for instance. People were sleeping on RC77 for forever. I've been preaching the good word of RC77 for so long because he's an exceptional, I think it's a guy, an exceptionally fast character, rivaling some of the fastest characters in the game. And he's got stun, plus defense break, plus attack down, all at the same time. And he can also benefit from some of the crazy ways to build your characters, which is the final thing we'll talk about here. We hinted at it before with shells, but there's so many different ways that you can build characters in this game. Once again, it is such a positive that it's almost a damn negative, man, which is where a lot of the feel bads in this game comes from, because players have ideas for their characters and things they want to do with their characters. And it's just, and we'll get to it when we get to the negatives, it's just feels so damn bad when you have ideas for teams that you want to just kind of cook with, and you just can't because you don't get the drops, or it's taking too much time, or the economy's too messed up, right, to be able to do the things that you want to do. So there's a lot of cool stuff in here, and we're just now seeing, if you've watched some of the tournament stuff, some of the stuff that we've been talking on this channel about with tank down and different team compositions, and being able to use stuff that comes from some of the later shell floors, like Codex of Magic, so you can use your strongest skills back to back in a PvP scenario, right? Using something like a Lighthouse on a tank character to self-heal the damage and push up and disrupt your enemy in PvP scenarios. Or everyone's favorite thing that will probably, you might have seen it on someone like Tiamat, right? Amber coming in. If you're about to die, you turn into ice. You go to the ice state, you get 200% defense bonus. When you take your turn, you heal some more. Or everyone's favorite thing, Revelation, where you just do max HP damage that scales off of your attack, off one of the two caps. You're either doing 10 to 12% of the enemy's max HP per hit while this shell procs, or you're doing, in PvE scenarios usually, capped at 150% or higher if you have the higher level Revelation maxed out every time you hit somebody while this shell's going off, which is just absolutely insane. There's so many different ways to build your characters in this game. And one of the greatest quality of life that I've seen, period, in any gacha game is with the shell system in Etheria Restart, specifically with the imprint system. For instance, this Amber here is something that I got access to while I was leveling Hell, Nightmare, early on. First epic shell that you gain, you're like, okay, it's cool, I can use it. Is it perfect? No, but I want to level it up. I want to increase some of the passive abilities. Maybe it's something that you're using on your tank, your DPS, and you roll some really cracked abilities, right? You get some reds on there, and you're ready to rock and roll into Inferno mode and gain access to the triple matrix shells, the end game shells. But what you don't want to do is have to level these all from scratch, because it's very expensive to level one shell from level 1 all the way up to 40. What this game allows you to do is take something like this lower level Amber shell and use the imprint system. Like, I just got a better version of this specific shell in Inferno that has 3 matrix abilities on it, the Bramber Drive as well as Swift Smite here. And if I wanted to, all I need to do is click on attribute, go to imprint, and what this allows me to do is take all of that EXP, take the abilities that I've unlocked. Imagine if these were perfect red abilities with max HP 30%, right? Max speed 20 flat. I could take this Amber right here and just put it into this new Inferno shell that I just gained access to and just immediately upgrade the character I was working on. Just like that. I don't have to level the brand new shell from scratch. This is one of the craziest things that I've seen in any gacha game, allowing you to just immediately gain access to and benefit from some of the end game content as you unlock it. And it's just a fantastic thing to have in a game like Etheria Restart. And let's get into the negatives here, starting with playstyle stuff. So, playstyle in this game is intrinsically tied to being able to gain access to, and it is also limited by what the content wants you to do when you're first playing in Etheria Restart. So when we come to stuff like Grim Pursuit or Threshold, right, Terramatan, Doki Doki, Aurora, when you're farming content up, you do have the opportunity to put some cool teams together. You also are limited by what that fight wants you to do. Super fair. The downside becomes when you start getting to some of the harder stuff like Terramatan or Doki Doki or Aurora, whether it's Terror or Hell or Inferno levels for different fights out there. The battles really want you to do specific things, and you're kind of punished if you don't do those specific things. So maybe you're someone who is like, I just want to play like a tanky person. I just want to play a tanky team. And you try to progress in PvE with tanky teams tank downing, right? You might be able to swing that. I don't even farm Terramatan because I don't like the gear that they drop anymore. But you might be able to swing that early on through Nightmare, Nightmare 2, Nightmare 3. And then once you get into Hell 1, Hell 2, Hell 3, Hell 4, and then even like Inferno, the game wants you to do very specific things, and the player base really kind of doesn't really mesh well with this. Where like early on, the bosses don't hit super crazy hard. They don't have a lot of crazy mechanics they need you to do, and the mechanics are really mechanics, right? When we get from Hell, or let's go from Nightmare 3 to Hell 1 here, this guy starts doing crazy stuff where like the arm on the right hand side, his right hand side, will just start one-shotting your DPS no matter how tanky you are. Or maybe you go super tank down and then the boss has an enrage mechanic and you have to deal with that. And the end game TLDR for a lot of these fights becomes kill it as fast as you can and as efficiently as you can with just enough tankiness that you don't die. And so it feels kind of like an RNG clusterfuck fest every once in a while when players are first progressing through these different tiered difficulties into PvE, so they can gain access to the shells and the modules that they want. And some of the fights at the end game are still super RNG for a lot of players out there. I'm looking at you, Rengo Kutsu, all right? This guy here. So that's gonna be a big downside when it comes to you as a player wanting to interact with the super cool stuff that the game wants you to build your characters with, right? You can do so many different things with the shell setups and the module combinations where you want to have like extra attack, extra health, extra speed, counterattacks, right? Combo that with different shells. So like you're tanking and you push up and you self-heal. There's so many things that you can do, but a lot of them when you're progressing in PvE just aren't really worth doing, or they just don't work. Only specific things really work, which is just do a bunch of damage as fast as possible and then don't die. And a lot of the ways that you just don't die early on is you just go in here, you're gonna go into Nico Nana and you're just gonna farm up a lot of this artisan shell because it's absolutely broken, because you can put this on all of your supports, your debuffers, and it gives them extra sustain, and it also helps heal your characters. Not heal, but like keep them alive with this absolutely giant bomb-tastic shield that it's gonna put on not just the character wearing it, but also the lowest health ally on top of that. So if you have a couple of these rolling on your DPS, or not your DPS, but your supportive debuffers and stuff, then you can kind of just get away without a healer, and it helps you meet those DPS thresholds, which is what a lot of these PvE fights are. Now, when we talk about the other PvE content in here, I'm much more lenient on it, and it also allows you to sort of express yourselves as a player in your playstyle I don't want to say a lot better or more efficiently. It just allows you to really express your playstyle stuff. It still does have the just kill it really fast a lot of the time things, but there's a lot of different mechanics. Like if we look at Anti-Sync Echo, like there's a lot of mechanics for a lot of these fights as you're going through it. The main downside though, is that a lot of the difficulty, the direct difficulty in these fights literally is a combination of two things. And it's a combination of the stats that the game wants you to have in combination with the characters that it allows you to use, right? So it'll be like, oh, you need to bring this Heinrich fight, I think, on Nightmare, or is it in Nightmare? There's enemies, I think they just nerfed them actually, and I haven't done it since they nerfed it, are like 340 speed or something. So they want you to have people who are exceptionally fast, and if you're not fast enough, they get a bunch of buffs, they push you back, they put unbuffable on you, and they just kind of actually cleave you down as a player. Or you have something like the Ethernet Rally or the Ember Trek, which Ethernet Rally is really the big one here, and it's supposed to be something that you approach over time and isn't something that that's why I'm more lenient on them. Still have some downsides associated with them, where you're only able to bring certain types of characters. You can see down here, right? This one is red and white characters only, or constant in whatever the red one is. Or these, you can only bring these three colors. Or this one, you can only bring red and blue characters. I always forget red. It's odd in something else. Constant, I never remember red. I never remember the red one. Or this is these three characters. In one of them, it's different this time, but one of them was a boss down here, Kururu, and you could only bring like hollow and constant characters. And you needed a DPS that could do AoE damage, or at least burst down a bunch of these ads quickly before the boss like had a move that blew up your team, and it would just kill you basically unless you had at least two of them dead for the most part, unless you were out gearing the fight and had defense buffs and shields and everywhere. But you needed to kill at least one, and the ads had like way too much health, and you were only allowed to use those two elements, and there was really only like 2 or 3 DPS characters that anyone could have geared up at that time. So it just felt really bad progression wise. Some of the numbers are off when it comes to some of this end game stuff for the most part, and a lot of players are still clearing it using damage over time Shadow Sonya teams, which you might not have access to, obviously. We'll touch on not specifically Dreamscape. You can go check out another video about the drama behind Dreamscape if you're interested in this specific event. I'll be doing it later. Maybe I'll record all my runs. But time-limited game modes in general, listen, they just seem to be directed towards you being literally at the end game, being level 100, not being unlucky, having the triple matrix shells, the end game shells, having the triple ability pieces of gear that drop from some of the end game stuff, and have them on multiple characters, right? Have them on 10 or so characters. And that doesn't really mesh well with what a lot of the players really kind of expect from events like this. And I don't blame those players at all, especially when you have, you know, developers and community, not community managers, but like whoever's posting on Twitter and whoever's making the calls to the community and be like, check out this new event. It's going to be highly rewarding for free to play players and stuff, and really help you get into the end game. And it's just stuff that kind of demands that you have almost end game, if not end game characters already. And for an event that only lasts like a week at best, it just feels really bad. So that's a couple of negatives here as well. And the biggest one here, and I'm not going to make an entire video on it. I mean, I have made an entire video. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this video, is the costs of trying to level up gear for your characters, right? Is a huge negative. The economy, I'm going to be frank here. The economy is absolute dog shit in this game. It is the worst part of this game, and it is this game's main downfall right now, and it needs to be changed. And so far, from what we've heard from the lead devs, and Jack did an interview with some of the other content creators out there, didn't really seem like they were ready to engage with the community and be like, yeah, we need to sort of change some things, whether it's reducing how much money it costs to level your gear, to check your gear. And I have an entire video on this, I'll have linked down below, about how you just cannot defend this part of the game, because it's get lucky or get fucked, basically, is what it is. When it comes to not just having the gear drop, but having enough resources to upgrade the gear. We've had, longtime veteran PvE, PvP gacha game players who know how to roll gear, who know how to check gear, go through 5, 10, 15 million Etheria coins after farming double drops on the weekend and get maybe one usable piece of gear, right? I'm not talking about like one perfect piece of gear and like 25 things that are pretty good and you can still use them and be happy about. I'm talking about like one good piece of gear, and it's absolute trash. The other thing is the other part of the economy. The module economy is dog shit. The shell economy is pretty gross too when it comes to drops. So personally, for me, I hit level 100. I have farmed Shadow Flame Hoyon triple clear on Inferno from about level 63 to 100. And I have gotten a couple of good shells, but that's it. Almost 40 player levels of farming Shadow Flame Hoyon, and I don't have any halfway decent revelation at all. That's where all of my energy's gone, and I've basically, it's what I need to do to make my characters better so I can progress, right? I need to have some triple set Jackal Guards that have Swift Rush on them so I can make my PvP debuffers and stuff faster, so I can put something like a Swift Smite, Swift Rush combo on them so I can take turn one, right? I'm already like 325, 330 speed without the Swift Smite, so I'd be like 350 speed with it, but I can't combat those 350 speed, 340 speed players without this 6-piece setup, and I just cannot get a shell to fucking drop with it. So it's kind of, I just can't really play PvP at the level I'm supposed to be able to anymore. And the same thing with when it comes to PvE or different character builds, building Revelation, I haven't been able to get any with Swift Raid on them in conjunction with some of the other nice ones to give you, crit rate increase like Momentum or whatever, like a Yaylee one, right? I haven't been able to get any of those drop in 40 account levels, which the drop rates are pretty awful. And, well, the Dream Ba just got added. We can go watch the video about that. It is a Band-Aid fix at best when it comes to the Dream Ba here. And this was added as a, oh yes, we understand that the economy is a little wonk when it comes to upgrading your shells, because upgrading your shells costs a lot of this currency here in the form of the training data, right? And so the Dream Bomb, listen, it replaces all of the yellow shells that used to drop that would sell for 4K with the Dream Bomb that sells for 8K. It's a stupid change. You could have just increased the amount of raw training data everyone got on Inferno by 4K, and that would actually give us more training data than the Dream Bomb does right now. Also, a lot of the times that you're kind of locked into needing a bunch of training data to increase your shells level to like level 40 isn't when you're farming Inferno difficulty, it's when you're farming Hell for the first time or Nightmare for the first time, because you can level your shell up to 40. And I'll have to add it later because one of the best quality lives I've ever seen, we didn't do it on the pluses though, is the fact that you can just transfer all of the levels and all of the abilities on the shell that you worked on up to the new shells that have up to 3 different matrix effects on them, which is one of the best quality of lives ever in any gacha game. It's basically you can pre-farm, you can farm up a good weapon, and then when a weapon that is the same kind with even better stats and abilities drops on it, you can just transfer over all of that work you put into the previous one into this one, which is amazing. But on Nightmare and Hell, into the negative here, that's when you need the training data. You don't need the training data on Inferno. Once you're farming well into Inferno, you're not locked by training data anymore. You are locked by the abilities on your shells, because they take, guess what? A different thing. They're reconfiguration chips, which comes primarily from destroying the different shells that drop that are garbage that you're not going to use anymore. And the drop rates on this, you've probably seen this a million times, are pretty awful. It's terrible. I have some pretty nice ones out here, right? 28 crit damage, bro. You know, we got some cool guys in here. We got 20 speed, dude. 20 speed, 20 speed. Cool stuff. 16 speed on that boy. Got the full shielder. You can get some really nice stuff. 28 attack, 17 crit, final damage. It's super cool. That is where a lot of players are struggling on Inferno when it comes to the shell currency though. It's not the training data, it's the reconfiguration chips, and they have done nothing to change that economy at all, whether it's like the drop rates or a pity system for the abilities on these shells, or reducing the amount of currency that you need to re-roll the shells, or giving you access to more of the not training data, but the what is this thing called, man? Keeping it real as always, right? The stop! Ha! What are we doing? Oh, okay. Reconfiguration chips, right? When it comes into this stuff as well. So those are the two big things that they really need to work on when it comes to shell farming. Now, one of the worst things when it comes to characters in this game is everyone wants to level the characters that they enjoy. And there's a couple of downsides here, and this is the character economy in Etheria. Now, if you're coming from something like Genshin Impact or maybe Honkai Star Rail, leveling characters is the prowess thing, right? You can level their level, which is fine. But then when it comes to leveling their abilities, it's with this prowess system, which has a couple of big faults with it. Now, the first one we'll touch on here is that you get a lot of characters very easily in this game, and the character acquisition rate does not meet the material rate of what you need to unlock some of these skill trees. You need this perfect lattice for SSRs, and the far easier ones to get are these purple lattices, which I'll use on you, are the purple lattices for SRs. Purple lattices you can get fairly easily. The SSR lattices are much rarer. Now, there's a lot of characters that you can use and have them take good effect and do good things for you without investment. But man, I have never seen a system that allows someone to almost like cock block their own progression when it comes to PvE. Because like we talked about before in PvE, the game eventually, once you're getting into higher levels of Hell or getting into Inferno, really wants you to do specific strategies, right? And you can do those strategies with a bunch of different characters, but you're still going to need to use, at least in the characters that you have, specific ones for each of those strategies. And some characters will overlap, which is why you hear something like Lily's too strong, nerf Lily, which I don't agree with. But someone like Lily is very awesome, not because just that her kit's insane, because it is, but the other thing about her is that she's so universal that you can invest into her very early on with your SSR lattices, the gold ones here, and get crazy return on her, because you're going to be able to use her in basically every single piece of PvE content for the most part. So it's insane that way. However, if you want to cook with some of the newer characters, or you want to cook with some of your own fan favorites, you don't have the ability. Like, I don't have the ability to be like, you know what, I'm going to go in and level up my Tiamat right now. And then, you know what, I want to level up my Doki Doki for my cleanser. And I want to level up, you know, this and get my 100% debuff on Colossus. You cannot do all of that. You have to pick and choose. And it's just a little too much picking and choosing right now for a lot of players out there, me especially. I don't think we need to be raining these down, right? There still should be some choices to be made. I'm not asking for everyone to be able to max level, max talent every character. I don't want that. But it needs to be, I think, a little bit more than it is right now. And the biggest offender about this system is that, unlike Epic 7, where you level your stats in one way, right? And then you level your skill abilities, like the damage percent bonuses and the cooldowns on your skills, separately with something else. This game has them baked in together. So like Heinrich here, right? The first tree, the S1 tree, is always giving your characters attack bonuses. And then it also usually gives you speed here if you're some sort of like debuff character, right? Like if we look at Mio, attack, 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 speed, speed. Interesting. And then this tree is always like defense with maybe effectiveness or crit chance here. And then the last one's HP. And usually it's just HP. I think it's like HP, some maybe like healing increase for different characters. But it does a couple of different things that I don't like. Number one, I don't like the speed stat being tied basically perpetually always to a character's S1. Because for a lot of these debuffing characters, especially like the SSR characters, in PvP, their role is to go first. And if you want to compete in a lot of these circumstances, or even like some of the ender game PvE, like we talked about with the anti-sync version of Heinrich, where they want you to be like 330 speed or whatever. Listen, man, 15 free speed is a shit ton of free speed, right? But the sad thing is that this is locked behind leveling up her S1, which is like one of her worst abilities, right? So if you want the 15 free speed, you have to get a damage mod increase, and you have to like get a freeze chance increase on the S1, which is fine, and then a damage mod increase so you can get the last 10 speed, right? If this wasn't intrinsically locked to leveling up a specific skill, you'd be able to maybe, you know, increase the things that you care about, right? Which is the effect of your strong abilities on these debuffers, like Turnstile and cooldown reduction, which is the biggest one. So the final thing about how they have the character progression locked, and this all comes full circle, and thanks for sticking around, right? But we have to combine the rarity of the perfect lattice with the stats that the game gives you depending on what ability you're unlocking points for, basically. And then the final one, if you're coming from something like Epic 7, is it seems that this game knows that it's kind of fucked up and takes advantage of that, right? For instance, like from Epic 7, cooldown reduction is usually something that you'll get halfway through Mologoring an ability, right? Your support, right, will be like something, cooldown reduction, damage, right? It'll be like effect chance, cooldown reduction, damage percent bonus, effect chance sometimes even. In this game, the cooldown reduction is always the fucking final one, right? Always the final one. No matter what kind of character it is, the cooldown reduction is the final one. Meaning that all of these support characters that want to cycle around in PvE, use their skills, you have to use the super rare perfect lattices just just to get the cooldown reduction. If the cooldown reduction was shoved at like the second or third upgrade, and this useless damage percent multiplier increase was on the final one, it would help fix this tofu perfect lattice economy. But for every character, the cooldown reduction, final one, if there is one anyway, right? And then this really blows back some of these debuffing characters where you really want the final thing, but man, you're really paying in spades for it, right? To get the cooldown reduction on Kloss, you have to get damage percent multiplier increase, damage percent no one's building here for damage, so you have to waste 2 things to get 2 good things. And then if you want her to be fast, well, guess what? Then you're wasting damage multiplier to get this speed increase. So you're wasting a couple to get that as well. So the combination of just how rare those things are with how you're kind of trapped into unlocking certain aspects of the abilities just does not feel good. It needs to change, and it's definitely one of the biggest downsides of the game. Now we can also talk about the downsides of PvP as well. And well, if you've watched any of the Epic 7, the World Cup going on, it is just a little imbalanced right now in all of the wrong ways, right? So speed is the meta right now. Speed revelation, just go fast, have revelation. You can try to tank down as much as you want to, but if you have multiple of the revelation shell, you kind of just get shit on. I'm sure that will get touched up in PvP at some point. I know the developers were like, no, it's part of, we designed revelation, you know, to help against tanks, but it's just like, yeah, but if I'm all revelation, and there are some things you can do, and I'm looking forward to the game evolving more, because in PvP, a lot of the reason you see the go fast revelation everything is because it's the most effective way to do PvE, right? And this all ties in together with the PvE, with the poor economy system as far as shells go, and the poor economy system as far as modules go. If you're only able to get certain kinds of gear, and you're only able to level so much of that gear, you need to level the type of gear that's going to help you in your PvE clears. And if the PvE clears sort of force you, for consistency reasons, towards the higher difficulties, to do the clear it as fast as possible, you can't hit in rage, you need to do as much damage as possible and just barely live. Everyone's going to be farming towards the same things. Everyone's going to be farming towards the same sort of build setups. They need speed, they need damage, they need revelation, and they have to spend their time leveling that stuff up. So when you go into like the arena realm, or you go into basically anything out here, you're going to see a lot of this. You're gonna see a lot of the same things over and over and over. Only later, and this will happen, we're starting to see it now, and we've called it out when the game was released, will you see people finally who have completed all of the PvE grinding, because basically everyone's PvP teams is just their PvE characters with their PvE focused gear, and they're just using it in PvP, where you'll have people who have the ability, who don't need any of that stuff anymore, to farm up the tankier sets, to farm up the immunity sets, the counter sets, the bulwark, the bramble counter, the bloodbath so they don't get nuked into the oblivion, the lighthouses out there, right? If you've been playing the game, you know what I'm talking about. Basically the tankier stuff that allows you to more effectively play like a slower style, or like a counter cleave reverse style. People want to do it. The ability for everyone to do it is there. You just have to basically pay your dues, right? Pay the damn man the fee, get the PvE farm team done, and then you can do it. And that's totally fine. The problem is the economy is so fucked up. Like I said, I've been farming for like 2 different things for the last 60 account levels and still don't have it, right? Let's see, do we have anything here? I'm seeing it in real time. I just spent 270 energy while we were doing this and I didn't get anything, which is like all of my day's energy basically, right, for the day. So there's a lot of great things about this game, and it has the potential to be insane, but the economy is the main thing holding it back. And if you want a full breakdown on that or full breakdown on Dreamscape or whatever, I would tell you to go check those videos out, because we just keep it real, right? If stuff needs to change, I don't like to bitch too much, but like, I enjoy this game. I want it to succeed. And a lot of players who have kind of done this before, they've played these games. I've played these games before. They know what will turn off a player base. They know what will make someone quit when it's just a little bit too much over the bounds of acceptable in some things, as far as spending 40 account levels and getting nothing for it, right? I'm not asking for the world out here, but the economy system needs to be reined in a little bit, because you have a very nice gacha pull system. And if those two things could line up, it's going to be awesome. Until then, though, not a lot of players are going to even want to pull on characters, because, well, they might not necessarily have the ability to farm gear for those characters in shells to mix and match those characters together, which is a whole entirely different problem. But that's good. What I'm going to be saying out here. If you want to see more stuff like this, I'm not sure what we're doing explicitly on this channel. We might rename it to It's Just Josh and just cover gachas and games and drama llama and all that cool stuff out there as well. So it's getting hot out here. I've been under these lights too long. My hair's whack, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I didn't record.